here and now. And I think your journey is a great testament, not only to human spirit, also to human spirit, but also to God's spirit. I remembering just one summer, my family, we were driving from our home in Austria up to Berlin, Netherlands, and up here, which is like this much compared to your journey. But it was an incredible and very, very nice adventure. And you really get to know each other, right? Kids, did you ever fight during the journey? Yes.
So they do it yourself.
Very, very good, very good. That's an important part, right, of our siblings. They help us to fight. And in fighting, we are shaking our hearts. Yeah. So, the message today, the focus of the message today is seek ye first God's kingdom and His righteousness, which is an advice that Jesus gives His disciples, and which is a call really about priorities in our lives. What do we put first in our life? In the quotation we heard from Jesus didn't say clothes are not important, right? He didn't say this in a single term. He just said, of course you want to have nice clothes. Look, God will provide you nice clothes. He didn't say money is not important. He said you cannot serve money. Because this is one very, very basic principle. If we do not put God first in our life, but if we, in our priority list, right, we all run through life with a list of priorities. And sometimes we're not aware of them, but we live them, right? We kind of practice them depending on what is it that we first do in our day, what do we do last in our day. They are indications of what is really important for us in our life. How do we spend our time and how do we spend our money? That are sort of the basic indications of what actually our priority list in life really is. And Jesus speaks here that the most important thing, and even the Ten Commandments already early in the Bible say, the most important thing is that you do put God first. And you put God's kingdom first. Because only by submitting to God and putting God first, we create space for everything else in our life that is precious and that is of meaning. If we put something else first, Jesus uses here the example of money, this one thing grows its tentacles into all other aspects and areas of our lives and dominates the rest of our lives. Only God, who is a God of love and a God that respects our freedom and wants to give us space to develop ourselves, only God is that selfless to give us space for everything else that is important in our life. It's a bit like the difference between democracy and a dictatorship. You know, if we put God in charge, we have freedom. If we put a dictator in charge, he tries to control and micromanage all the small areas in our life. I just came back from a pastor's retreat from our family federation where we met for a weekend. It was kind of time for us as pastors and community leaders to lick our wounds, to complain a bit about members. No. and how much they complain about us. No, of course we didn't do that. But there was one, Ruth Haynes said in our reflection something very, very nice that I almost want to be the main message today, which is, she put it into one sentence. If you make time for God, God will make time for you. And she backed this little wisdom up with her experiences. If I really make that extra effort in the morning to make time for God in my day, then suddenly I don't need to wait for the bus. The bus comes in time, and so many, many small things actually really win That's time back during a day. So it's not a big sort of spiritual thing. But if we move through the day in tune with God's timing, by making time for God first in the beginning, her experiences, and it's something also I can very much testify to, many other things go well. And I do not maybe need that sort of rest on the bathroom toilet where I spend like, I don't know, 20 minutes on this. Because anyone ever experienced that from the younger generation? I admit it, I was there. And I did it, and afterwards I didn't feel internally good, and I had pins and needles in my you know, if they have these pins and needles in your feet and you can hardly walk. Anyway, so the story is make time for God. Put God first in your life and seek, but it goes deeper. Seek ye first God's kingdom. That even takes us a level deeper than a certain set of rules. I make an hour time for God in the morning and I make an hour time for God in the evening or something like this. It's that first desire is really to realize and to live and to experience God's kingdom. By meaning putting God first, and I'm speaking here as a pastor, I do not mean to put always the church first. Dum dum. The church community is an important part of our life with God. It's an essential part. Please don't take me wrong, I'm not saying church is useless. But there's a difference between putting God first and putting the church first. Even the church can become like money, can become actually an obstacle in our relationship to God if we feel, by doing church work, we avoid other responsibilities that God wants us to put first. The message that I'm giving here is to put God first. And sometimes putting God first means putting myself first. In other times it means putting church and mission and activities and sharing the good news with others first. And yet in other times it means playing with your children is the priority and the right way to put God first. Right? So I'm not giving you here an external instruction how you should spend your time. But the internal attitude that we need to have is whenever I was the feeling, I need a break from God, I need a bit of distance now from God, never go down that route. You may take a break from other things, but never from God. God always needs to be first in our lives, because otherwise he will end up last. Every other things will push him away from our life. So in that sense, we need to be radicals. We need to be real radicals in our decisions to put God first. I recently had this experience. I'm doing, in our movement, in our church, we like to offer devotion. Anyway, whether we like it or not, and we do it if we're in. And so I've been spending, evening prayer sometimes until midnight and after that. And so then I felt, okay, after evening prayer, brushing my teeth, going to bed, and then I felt, now I still want to do something for myself. And I opened my little chess app and played a few games of chess. And that made me think, okay, was the prayer really deep? Was this prayer really fully fulfilling for you if afterwards you still have the feeling, I need to play this little game of chess to do something for myself? I don't think it's a sin, but it raised a question for me. Was I in this point of prayer in closing the day? Was my heart really deeply settled in God and my deepest desire satisfied in the presence of God? Or did I need some other dopamine input before going to bed? I just leave you with this question to think and reflect on our own lives, because these little deeds that we do reflect our priorities. Genuinely, it's not what we say. It's what we do in this moment when I want to rest a bit, when I want to relax a bit. Where do I turn? What do I do? How do I rest? Is God part of that? Or do I need to think, oh, after all this prayer, I need a break from God and play a game of chess to win, or something like this? What does this tell me about myself, and what message does it send me? So I encourage you to think about these things and to see how really in all that we do, we can make it an expression of our search for God's kingdom and His righteousness. Of course, as families of the Family Federation, as blessed families, we say regularly the family pledge. And the first verse of the family pledge exactly makes the same time. It also starts with Uri Kajanun. Some words I heard from you this morning when you introduced your family. Uri Kajanun, our family, the owners of Chanilguk, which means we are not people who are seeking God's kingdom, but we're somehow owning it. We are, like a shopkeeper. This our founder, true father, explained to us this Urikajunun Jamsaran or Jamshin. Chanilguk Chui, yeah, that's right. We start with Chanilguk Chui, with the owners of Chanilguk. And our founder, true father, he explained to us, Juin is the owner of a shop. Is the shop owner. And you all have been in a cafe, right, where someone was employed. And they were kind of serving you. Did you have that experience? Mm-hmm. The difference between some employee serving you and the owner serving you. Mm-hmm. Did you experience the difference? Mm-hmm. Can you see this when you sit in a cafe and observe? After people are served, the employee goes back to the phone. And scrolls through whatever, Snapchat, Instagram, or whatever. The owner sees, oh, this is to clean up, there is something to do, or strikes up a conversation with you because he or she is genuinely interested in you. There's a very, very different feeling of being an owner of a cafe and between being an owner, being the owner of a cafe or just an employee. And so we need to ask ourselves also, are we just visitors in God's kingdom in Chanilguk? Are we just employees who are checking off our requirements? For the blessings, there's a lot of requirements, right? I need to do the interview, I need to tick. Is that my level of engagement with God's kingdom? Or am I an owner, like the owner of a cafe that says, oh, you're all right. Oh, this needs to be done. This is still missing. And oh, there's all these things that should be done. Of course, I cannot do everything, but these are the priorities I put in place first so that this business can run. So, yeah, I encourage you today for your life to seek God's kingdom, but even further, true parents call us to do something further, not just to seek it and then sit there and drink the coffee, or not just seek the kingdom and then ask to get employed in the cafe, but to really become owners of that place. And yeah, so yeah, that's the message today. And for me, this passage that we just read from Jesus is, yeah, it's really the reminder to review my priorities in life, but not the priorities as I think they should be, but as they actually are. And again, the advice for you, how the most efficient way to review your priorities is to look at, what do I think first of in the day? What do I think about last in the day? Then quantity, how much time do I spend with this? How much time do I spend with this? How much time do I spend with this? And the third is, how do I spend my money? Anyway, that's very practical, right? But they're just better indicators than the beliefs that you profess in that sense. And so, yeah, with this sense of encouragement combined with this very, very moving story of the butterflies under the trees. Let us be owners of John Book so that it can be a large, wide tree where many, many butterflies can find their environment, their rest to dwell. And this reminds me of the quotation of an Indian poet who said, "It's true love when you plant a tree under which is shadow you will never rest." Thank you very much.